So authenticity ain't what it's cracked up to be. See, I get to speak to this because throughout my life, I have been introduced as the most authentic person that person who's introducing me has ever met. And being introduced that way a lot gets you thinking about stuff. Got me thinking about stuff. I was shocked. I was shocked every single time I was introduced that way. And the thing about authenticity is, Webster's dictionary says it's being true to your personality and character. And I don't know about you, but I know lots of folks that I'd rather they didn't. And I was one of them, right? I have transformed myself into somebody I like, but I didn't start out that way. And so authenticity ain't what it's cracked up to be. Kindness is. I would have much rather been introduced as somebody who was the most kind person they ever met. I would have been much happier with that. And I know that that words, they shift in definition, right? So I'm clear that what people mean when they're saying authenticity, they're talking about the authentic self, they're talking about spirit, they're talking about that higher self. And and words do change definition. I mean, the word sin was an archery term that simply meant miss the mark, and look at how we use it today. So words change meaning, and so authenticity might change its meaning, but as somebody who comes from that place of being an unfiltered person who's had to learn how to actually filter, and I know that there are others who are extremely filtered and, are trying to learn how to be a little bit more unfiltered. And so if you're doing that, what I want to say to you is that as you're becoming authentic, one of the things that's really important is to notice what is authentic. It's not as cut and dry as we think. What's real? What's actually going on here? I've heard people use authenticity as a way to be mean. Maybe you have too. I'm just telling my truth, right? But what is that truth? What is really going on? We get caught up in that our experience must be real. This must really be going on, right? But it's not always the case. In the Buddhist tradition, they believe that all suffering, no matter how great or small, is all based in your buy-in on the reality of it. That if you don't, that letting go is the thing. The more you let go, the less suffering you have, no matter what the circumstance. No matter what the circumstance. They just believe, let go, let go, let go. And so I've told you guys about Paul Den Gyatso, this guy who was imprisoned by the Chinese, tortured every single day for 33 years. Scars over 97% of his body, a cattle prod put in his mouth, he loses all his teeth. And the Dalai Lama calls him the most enlightened guy on the planet. I mean, you see his face and it's just pure love. And when he was asked, how did you endure that? How did you get through? How did you come out so enlightened? He said, all I did was think about love as the only thing that's real. That's what he chose as the only thing that's real. Now, for most of us, myself included, I really don't want to let go of everything. I don't mind a little suffering. I like being engaged in life. In fact, I get so engaged in life, there's this TV show called Justified. I don't know if you know this show. It's a modern day Western, right? With a lawman who's quick draw and he kills these outlaws and they're justified. That's the name of the show. It takes place in the Deep South. And my wife, Ash, she always knows when I'm watching this show because I come out of it talking in a Southern accent. Walk in the kitchen, go, how you doing, darling? She's like, oh, you've been watching Justified. That's how engaged I get, right? And that's a TV show. That's not even in this plane. That's there, right? And when they're ready to do a fast draw, my heart's pounding, right? Because I'm right there with them when they're ready to draw. I love that stuff. I don't want to be disengaged from that. And, that's what's going on here too. And so I've heard people say, well, if you think none of this is real, just go stand in front of a bus. And I read an article of a guy who died of a heart attack watching a horror movie. It doesn't have to be real to kill you. So I don't recommend standing in front of a bus. But that doesn't make it real. And so questioning what's real is something that has worked for me very strongly throughout my life. I mentioned a few weeks ago that I've had 97 different jobs. And one of them was as a dream interpreter. I got paid very well for interpreting people's dreams. And one of the basics of dream interpretation is how you react in your dream is irrelevant to the symbolism of the dream. However you're reacting in the dream doesn't matter to the symbolism that your unconscious, superconscious, higher conscious is trying to say to you. You know why? Because you think your dream is real. You're reacting in the dream as if it's real. You're caught up in it. You don't know you're dreaming. You're in there thinking it's real. And so everything that's going on, you're not seeing as a symbol. You're seeing it as happening right here and now. I'll give you a perfect example. If in your dreams, you are in a car that's on fire, you're freaking out. In your dream, you think you're in a car on fire, and the thing you want to do is get out of that car. And then you wake up and you think, oh my God, I just had a nightmare. I was in a car that was on fire. Now, here's the symbology of that. The car represents your spiritual journey. The fire represents something that's coming to birth, something that's coming to life that you're really on fire about. It's this incredible symbol. You have a car on fire that you're in your dreams. It means your life is about to take off. And yet, you don't think so. Because you just woke up from this nightmare thinking you were on fire. And it is, you are on fire, but you're on fire in a consciousness way. So here you take something that feels so, you think is so awful that in fact is incredible. And don't we have that experience in life all the time? We have this experience where we think something is so horrendous and maybe miss the true brilliance of what it is going on. That's why we call this transformation that happens on this plane an awakening. Because most of us are dreaming here because we think it's real. Now, I'm not here today to tell you what's real. I'm here to offer you an idea of challenging what you think is real, at least asking the question. I'm about to get a little freaky with you now, just warning you. So when I was in my 20s, I got a hold of a book about a sorcerer named Don Juan. Maybe some of you have heard of him. And I gobbled that up. I read all those books. And in those books was step-by-step directions on how to do something called astral projection, how to leave your body. And I was dead set determined to pull that off. So I started practicing. And I'm doing exactly what it says in these books for 5 years before I got to even the first step. Now, the first step is what's called lucid dreaming. Lucid dreaming is when you're dreaming, but you know you're dreaming. You're no longer asleep in your dream. You're asleep in this plane. You don't wake up here. You're still in your dream, but you know you're dreaming. And so after 5 years of practicing, I finally had my first experience of lucid dreaming. And I'm in this dream, and I got so excited that I realized I was dreaming, I woke up. But I kept at it, because I'm kind of a relentless guy. And I got to the point where I was doing it pretty regularly. And the first thing you do when you can lucid dream is you get to take charge of the dream. You get to do what you want. And so what I always liked doing was flying around. So I'd jump off buildings. If I found myself on top of a building, I'd jump off and I'd start flying, or I'd just leap up. I started getting really good at just leaping up and flying all over the place. And I traveled the world that way in my dreams. And then I got to the point where I wanted to travel out into space and go visit other planets and stuff. So I started doing that in my dreams. And in this one dream, as I'm traveling out into space, I forgot I was dreaming. All of a sudden, I'm just in this dream, traveling out into space. And before I knew it, there were I was imprisoned in bars in the middle of space. And because I didn't know I was dreaming, I freaked out and I woke up. But I woke up with this message that said, even freedom is a prison if it's a yearning. That whatever we yearn for is a prison. And so I thought, ooh, that's cool. I got to keep doing this stuff. So I kept at it and I kept at it. And I finally got to the point where one day I find myself actually traveling in this world outside my body. And I go visit my dad, who lived in Connecticut at the time, and I was in Brooklyn. And he was in the backyard, and he's building some sort of table. And the second I saw him, of course, I freaked out that I'd actually done that. And I get on the phone, and I call him up, and I go, Dad, are you in the backyard building a table? And he goes, yeah, how did you know that? And then I told him everything he was wearing, and we were both freaking out. It's like, oh my God, I was really there, kind of thing. And so I did that, and then I got better and better at it and started just, doing this on a regular basis, traveling around. Went and visited a really close friend of mine I hadn't seen in a while. Showed up while they were making love to her husband. I got out of there fast. It's not a sight I wanted to see. And so, but, I did what I always do, which is wake up and make the phone call, to check, was I there? And I call and I apologized, that I was there at that time, because they sensed someone was in the room, so they stopped. So I apologized for being there. And then when my son was 12, one day in the middle of the day, I'm just getting this sensation like something's wrong, something's up. And this was before him and I had cell phones. I had no idea where he was or what he was doing, but something was up. So I laid myself down and I went through my process and I found him. And he was smoking with his friends at 12. And I recognized the friend's house. So I called him up. I called his friend up, on the regular house line, because that's what we had then. And I said, put my son on the phone. And my son gets on the phone. I go, are you smoking? And he goes, how did you know, And so he made me, that was the last time I ever did it. Because I realized that it wasn't transforming me as a person. I was just using it to cover up my fears, right? At this point, I went and checked on my son because I was afraid he was doing something. It wasn't transforming me, and it really invaded his privacy, and that's what I was realizing was going on here. So I kind of stopped doing it. Now, why am I telling you this stuff? I'm telling you this because it's really fun to share, But also because this is my view of reality that I bring to you, that there's so much more going on and possible than we can possibly imagine. With everything I have done in this mystical arena, and it's a lot, I still don't know it all. There's still more. If there's anything I've learned, there's still more. There's still this whole place out there for us to grow into if we're willing to question what's going on. Dr. Holmes said that the most real thing that we can grasp onto is believing in ourselves, believing in others, and believing in that there's only one that's for our good. That those were the three things that if it didn't matter what your circumstance in life, it didn't matter what was going on, if you could grasp on to those three things as the only reality, your life would flourish. But it's not so easy, right? It's not so easy to trust others. Sometimes for me, it hasn't been easy to trust myself. That's why I kept making those phone calls. It's not like I believed I actually showed up there. I had to prove it. So it took me a long time to get to a place where I so fully, where I am now, where I really do believe in myself. But it didn't come lightly. It didn't come through authenticity. It came through being willing to look at what I cared about beyond the unfiltered me that was terrorizing the world at one time. You know, we come to this place where we get to know that there is more going on than we can see. And that what is happening, no matter what the circumstance, is for our good, for our spirit's good, for our deeper good. Maybe not a good that we can grasp onto easily or readily. I know that's true for me, right? I get really caught up in the drama of my day-to-day life every day. The thing, though, is I know that's just what's happened, and so I then get to laugh at myself about it. One thing about me is I don't take myself seriously. And I get pissed as anybody else. I just think it's hilarious that I get pissed. Because if it's not real, what am I really getting pissed at? What am I getting upset about? What's the real lesson here? And so what I bring to you today is the idea that you could be asking yourself these questions. Instead of so quickly being sure you're right that this is the way it is. I love it when people say, I know I'm right about this. And they get to be, right? We all get to be right. But how limiting is that compared to what's possible? And what are we going to do for ourselves to bring ourselves to a higher level of possibility? What are we going to do for ourselves to allow a sense that something new can enter, something new and alive? You know, like I was saying, fresh, keeping our lives fresh. I'm not big on authenticity. I'm huge on kindness. I'm not big on telling our truth, because when somebody says they're telling their truth, they're only telling it the way they see it. And that's always a limited thing. If you think you know what your truth is, look deeper. Paul Ingiazzo, 33 years, the only thing he saw as real was love. Now, again, I like being engaged. Every single morning I play a game of Wordle for money. And if I win, I'm like high-fiving it. And if I lose, I'm pissed. And then either way, I'm laughing at myself. Because it's a game. So it's okay to be engaged the way we do with movies. And we go, well, life isn't a movie. This is real. Well, I'm here to say not so much. Not so much. There's something deeper going on here all the time. And when we can feel into that, when we can be with that, it's just astounding, all the different things that are possible. Just yesterday morning, my wife, she's home because and she sends her love. She really wishes she could be here, but she was coughing like crazy. And so one of the things we do is what's called the time steam, which is kind of funny because of the word time. Anyway, it's an herb that you throw into hot boiling water, and then you just put the towel over your head and you breathe it in, right? And so we've been doing that. And just this yesterday morning, I woke up from a dream where an elder was sitting with me at a table saying, you know, you don't have to throw out the time every time. You can use it more than once during the day. You just add in more water and more time. And I didn't know that. And it's really so incredible when you get information that way. I didn't have to go to Google. First time I saw my wife, my Ash, was in a dream 6 months before I actually saw a picture of her. She had way shorter hair then. And so when I finally saw a picture of her, I asked her about that. And she said, oh, I had it that short 6 months ago. I mean, it's just amazing what's possible if you open to it. You know, there's a whole world going on here, inside this world, around this world, if we open to it. It's the only reason I'm here with you guys. Because logically, this didn't make any sense to me at all. The greatest move I ever made in my life, besides marrying Ash, was showing up here. And if I had thought about this logically, I never would have shown up. I'm just so grateful for what's possible. Beyond my logic, beyond what I see. My first question to myself whenever something's not going right, once I get there, after I get pissed and upset and all the things that everybody goes through, I finally get to the point where I ask myself, what's here? What's beyond this? What am I missing here? Since I'm upset about this, I must be missing something. It's here. What am I missing? Ask yourself those kinds of questions when you're upset. Ask yourself those kinds of questions when things are not going the way you'd like them to. I promise you there's an answer there. Deep and rich. The possibilities here are endless. And I am so grateful to be here sharing them with you. Thank you. I love you.